Okay, and this interview is being conducted for the Veterans History Project for the Library of Congress. The veteran's name is John Benjamin Kissam. He was born in Hillard, Florida. He served in... Oh, sorry.
Hilliard, that's, I think it's Hilliard.
Okay. And he served in the U.S. Army during 1958 to 1960. He achieved the rank of First Lieutenant. We are recording this on November 17th, 2016. I am Taryn Poole, and I'm conducting this interview. No relation. And so basically right now we can just listen to you and talk about your childhood and whatever else you would like to share.
Well, as I told you earlier, the depression was hard on my family.
Yes, sir.
And probably anybody family that lived in the South.
Yes, sir.
Work was hard to find, and my father went several years without a job. But he was a lumberman, and eventually the economy improved in the late 30s, 1930s. Found work again, and his last job was in North Carolina, working for a large mill. He had a lot of workers, mostly black men, but he also had a detachment of German prisoners. And it was one of my favorite things to do as a kid was to trade with the German prisoners for their unit patches and things they had on their uniforms. And I don't know what I did with them. I wish I had them today. But my brother went into the Merchant Marine, 17-year-old, and came back and got drafted in the Marine Corps, or he chose the Marine Corps. And then he served at the end of the war in Japan and China, and came home in 1946. And our family wasn't faring too well at that time. My mother was ill, my father had a stroke, so my brother moved us back to Florida, close to where I was born, so that my mother's sister could help take care of us. And eventually, my father was taken care of by some of my older brothers and sisters, and they sent me to live with my sister Mary in Waynesboro, Georgia. My mother was hospitalized and in an institution. But I was sent to Waynesboro with my sister. They took good care of me. Enjoyed the high school there. I played football. And actually I was lucky enough to get a scholarship offer for Clemson College. And so I came up to Clemson in 1953 and played football for Frank Howard. Played mostly on the practice squad. And graduated January '58. I had to come back for one semester to get my one credit in to get my degree, to get my commission. It was at that time also took courses in entomology as an elective, and it didn't leave my mind. Anyhow, I went on in the Army and got my artillery training, field artillery training at Fort Sill, and was transferred to Fort Hood, Texas, Second Armored Division, 78th Field Artillery, which I served until, well, I got married in 1959. My wife, Patricia Jean Weil. Her father was a career Army officer. Served in both the Pacific and in the Germany at the end of the war as military government. So my wife had a long military history. I remember that entomology course I had at Clemson. I called Clemson, the Department of Entomology, and asked if there's any chance I could come back and go to school and get a master's degree. They said, come on. They offered me a $150 a month scholarship.
Wow.
And my wife worked as a waitress at the Clemson house. And with that, we managed to survive. And I graduated in June of 1961. And got a job in Florida with a chemical company. And worked down there for 2 years, 18 months. And Clemson called me and offered me a job in their regulatory division, which was managed by the Department of Entomology. I was an assistant entomologist. At the same time, we needed money, so I joined the National Guard at Clemson.
Okay.
Battery C, 2nd Battalion, 263rd Air Defense. Air Defense Artillery. At the end of, when I finally got my master's degree, I already covered that, I'm sorry. I came back to Clemson, assistant entomologist in the Department of Entomology. And eventually I was promoted to the Extension Service as an associate entomologist. And then, not long after that, they changed my title to Associate Professor of Entomology. And I conducted extension work primarily, but also supervised graduate students, MS and PhD level students in research projects. Concurrently with that, I was still in the Guard. I stayed in, and during the Vietnam era, I commanded Battery C at Clemson from 1966 to 1973. And we really had a good unit, and I always wondered why they didn't send us to Vietnam, because they had 3 battalions of dusters, 40mm automatic guns in Vietnam. And we were ready to go, but they never called. And something I remember, I asked a general one time, I said, General, why not using us in Vietnam? He said, well, you know, if those of us in command in the regular army make a mistake and kill a bunch of people, it's spread out all over the country. You guys in the Guard make a big mistake, you kill a whole town. I said, well, I guess that's the reason Lyndon Johnson didn't call up the National Guard. And I guess that's the reason I'm still here. But anyhow, I stayed in, and I enjoyed the Guard as a part-time soldier, and was transferred to staff after my time was up at Charlie Battery. I served as the S2, I served as the S3. I also was then promoted to major and served as airspace management officer. Eventually, I did a short stint at headquarters of the Guard in Columbia, and then was promoted to battalion commander of the 263rd as a lieutenant colonel. That was in 1984, 1985. Then I was promoted to 06, full colonel, assigned to the staff of the National Guard headquarters in Columbia, where I retired January 1st, 1987. I enjoyed a long career of 28 years service, qualified for a pension, and so that's pretty much it, other than it's been 30 years since I retired from the National Guard. Anything else you wish to know?
Oh, well, do you keep up with any of the people?
I didn't say anything about my family.
Yeah, you should. You can.
Married my wife, Patricia Jean Weil, of Killeen, Texas, and on my birthday in 1959. That way, I never forget our anniversary. we had a child, Alice Lee Kissam. She was born in September 14th, 1968. And she now lives in Alabama and has 2 children. We're very proud of them. I worked for Clemson all those years, and I finally retired from it in June 30th of 1991. And after that time, we traveled a lot. And now we moved out to the Clemson-bound retirement community and are selling our farm. I didn't mention anything about the farm, but I grew apples as a hobby, other fruit trees, and enjoyed it a lot while I was able to do the work.
Yeah.
Anything else you'd like to know?
Let's see. Was there, I know you did a lot of like you worked at Clemson as well as being a part-time National Guard soldier. Was it easy? Did you find it easy to do that, or were you just very?
It was difficult doing. Actually, I was managing a farm, staying in the guard, and then working for Clemson. So I put in a lot of long days. But while you're able to do it, if you like doing it, it's fun. But after 45 years of pruning and doing all that kind of stuff, I'm not able to do that anymore.
Okay.
But it was a great career. Hopefully I've got a few more years, because I have a 91-year-old brother who's still keeping going, and maybe I will too.
Okay, cool. And did you stay in contact with any of your fellow officers, or?
We do have a Charlie Battery organization of old timers. We meet each year, have meals, bring their wives along, renew old times. We do that. It's a lot of fun.
Okay. Did your experience within? I understand you didn't really do too much as far as you don't feel like you were actually served within like Vietnam and whatnot. But did you think that your experience, like,
Well,
changed?
I was certainly ready to go, and I think I could have handled it all right. But on the other hand, it wasn't my fault that I didn't go, because I stayed in 28 years. The National Guard today is a great deal different, because it's all volunteer for one thing, and they're using them everywhere on the planet now. I mean, they go to Bosnia, they go to Afghanistan. And we had at least one guard brigade from South Carolina was in Afghanistan, I think. And many others served in Iraq. So the Guard today, my old battalion, the 263rd Air Defense Artillery, is part of the missile defense for Washington, D.C. And they alternate with 2 other battalions to provide air defense for the capital.
Make sure that's actually still the point. Interesting. Okay.
How does it look?
It looks good. It looks good. Do you have any lessons that you feel as though you learned any lessons you feel like you learned while you were serving in the military?
I suppose we learned a lot of lessons.
Yes.
I'm not. Once you've been lifting over
Oh, yeah. I do have one thing to say, Dad.
Yes, ma'am.
When he retired, and at the retirement party and everything, several of the men that served under him came up to me, and they said they would follow him in war any time. And I thought that was very high praise.
It was. I appreciate it. If I had had that to do, I think I could have done it okay. But I can't complain. No. Life's treated us well.
Oh yes, we've been very blessed.
Yes, ma'am.
Now, you want to interview me? I'm an Army brat.
I
We
mean,
were first dependents go into Germany after World War II.
Wow.
I was about 80 years old, I think. And I'm surprised how much I can remember.
Oh, yeah.
Whoa.
She was like 7 years old when
Yes,
she,
her age.
her father was in the military government.
Called constabulary.
And then he eventually transferred back to Texas. And he was special services officer at Fort Hood till
And that's where I met him.
he had to retire because of heart condition. Yeah, I saved her from Texas.
Oh, come on. I like Texas. I like here better.
No, I don't. Lesson learned. I'm not sure everybody learns lessons. You make a lot of mistakes. You learn some lessons.
Yes, sir.
I made my share, but you know, I enjoyed the military. I enjoyed the fact that we had good military leave policy at Clemson where I could participate. Cause I served two weekends a month, it seemed, for years. And of course, annual training, schools,
Yeah.
command and general staff college, all those things. All took a lot of time. Plus, I was growing apples too.
Yes.
Yeah, that's about it.
Okay. Did you have any parting words, like things you would probably want to share with other military members or veterans, you know, after yourself, things that you feel that they would be beneficial of knowing?
You know, the military is like anything else. Everything rides on people's background. Some people can command respect, some people don't. In particular, when I first went in the Army, it was at a downtime between wars, draft. Nobody liked the draft. The kind of people we were getting in was, they didn't want to be there, and judges were sentencing them to the Army. I don't know about the Navy, but they did to the Army. And it was tough trying to train those people. It was like running a academy for the disobedient. Anyhow, that wasn't very much fun, but you learn from every experience. And the ability and the opportunity to lead is what I enjoyed about the military. And I think that's why I was able to get on with Clemson when I did.
You mentioned that you own a farm now, or have owned a farm since you...
Well, you recalled earlier when we were in Florida, that I just received my master's degree and I took a job in Florida. Worked there for 18 months and came back to Clemson when they offered me a job up here.
Yes, sir.
Well, at about the same time, I saw an ad in the paper, local paper, the Messenger,
Yes, sir.
this little farm for sale up at 6 Mile. And so I went up there and looked over the place and contacted the man that was trying to sell it. And he told me he had payments to make for son going to school, needed to sell it. So he offered to sell the farm, this piece of land, which was about 50, at that time, 50 acres, for $4,000. My wife said, "You got to be crazy. That's just about all the savings we have." Can't you just see it? Well, we went ahead and bought it. And over the years, about 10 years later, no, 1970 it was, we built our house out there. And we were there 45 years this year. And I always had an interest in horticulture. And I love fruit crops. So I planted apple trees, I planted grapevines, I planted blueberries, I had pecan trees. I had a lot of garden space, and I really enjoyed that. And today, I had to pretty much give up the farming aspect 3 or 4 years ago. So we're actually trying to sell the place now, but it was a wonderful part of our life, and living out space. And I've had it resurveyed. It's now 65 acres.
Wow.
And surveys weren't too accurate in those days, the early days. So, at any rate, yeah, I have no regrets there. You're kind of isolated. I like that.
Yeah.
I like having space.
Peaceful.
We're very close to Lake Kiowee,
Oh.
and we enjoyed. We had a pontoon boat, which we carry out there and use the lake. And we had all kind of wildlife, deer, turkeys. Actually, the deer about put us out of the apple business, chewing on the apple trees. We even have an occasional bear come by,
Wow.
mostly feeding on our blueberries. But you got to take a bear where they are. They are there, and you can't do much about it. Oh, but you know, it was fun having the farm.
Okay. And about your family throughout time. I know we talked about your family during your childhood, but your family, your wife, and your children.
We have one daughter, and she's now a school teacher, and down in teaching school at Montevallo, Alabama.
Okay.
She got her master's at Alabama University, and she went to school here at Clemson initially for 3 years, and then followed her boyfriend over to Atlanta, got her degree at Georgia State, her BS degree. So, anyhow, she's going to go on teaching. And my brother, who was in the Marines during World War II, is 91 and still okay, but in a kind of an assisted living facility in Jacksonville, Florida.
You didn't tell her about Lee, our daughter.
I did. I just did.
Yeah. She touched on.
Well, the story is, you know, when she was 18 and she was deciding what she wanted to do, I told her, I said, you'd make a great teacher. But you know, moms can't tell you anything. So she had to go on, and she was an artist and all that. She decided to go with an architect. That just doesn't work too well. Too structured. Anyway, so she ended up with a degree in psychology, which she can't do anything with a bachelor's in that, hardly. So at 40, she decides she wants to go back and get a teaching. So she goes to get her master's, and when she gets it, she goes on the internet to find jobs. Now this is Alabama. And you know how they are on football. Well, there's over 200 available jobs in just her area around there, Shelby County. And she had an interview on, I think, 3, because all the other ones, teachers in history, they wanted coaches. And about that time later, I found in the paper, in the Greenville News, there was a story saying that 50% of South Carolina seniors could not pass the history test. And I wrote to the superintendent. I told her the story about Lee. I said, you know, I know there's coaches that are good teachers, and that, but they concentrate more on the football or the game, basketball or whatever. And I said, why do they have to be teachers? Because, you know, it was the same when I was in high school. I can see that civic teacher up there, the head
Been
coach.
that way for a
doing
long
nothing.
time.
Yeah, and it's a shame. It's really a shame. But she, in her very first year, she made Teacher of the Year for school and the county. I told her she should have gone around and gone, nah, 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 nah.
Well, we're blessed to have that daughter and have a couple of grandchildren. They've all grown up now too, trying to get them into college.
Oh, wow. Are they, any of them thinking about the military, or do you ever tell them?
I don't think so.
No.
I don't think so.
No.
I think the
It's not like
military
it used to be.
is a good place for any young person to start, get a little discipline.
It was good. It's a good experience.
I don't think there's too much discipline out there. When you're not disciplined, it's hard to stick to something.
Yes.
It's hard to show up for work. And militaries, frankly, I think they ought to have military service, or at least public service.
I think they should have it. I've always thought that 18's too young to go to college. I always felt like they should be at least 20. And then, but they had something in between, you know, they got that AmeriCorps, I think it's called. And something like that for 2 years before the.
But it's something that ought to be done. I don't know, it's a free country. I don't think we'll have a draft again unless we're at war.
Yeah, it had to be a really major one.
And this is a dangerous world.
Don't get into politics.
Well, is there anything else you'd like to know, talk about?
How do you feel about what's going on now, not necessarily politically, but just as far as how the military has evolved and changed over time? If you,
I think it's the best military we've ever had. You got people that want to be in, smart people. You got all these smart weapons. You got to have smart people. You got dedicated special forces and people like that. They're doing the brunt of the fighting, and their fighting seems like all over the world. Yeah, I think the military is in good shape. But they need support. And with China coming on, Russia coming on again, we need to invest in them to make sure we can deal with it. The Navy needs ships. They haven't built hardly enough new ships to replace the ones that are mothballing. So you know all about that.
yeah, just paint right on over it and make it look new.
Yeah.
And you said you're a part of Officers Club? Here?
Military Officers Association, MOA.
Okay.
It's a national organization with chapters. We're in the Piedmont chapter. We meet in Anderson and over here at Clemson.
Okay. What kind of things do you all do? Like,
We mostly go out to eat and have various speakers in. Some of them, just anybody we can get that can give an interesting presentation. It doesn't have to be military. A lot of it is military, but we enjoy doing that. Matter of fact, we're going tonight.
oh yeah.
Dinner meeting in Anderson.
Okay. So, do you have a vivid memory from your military experience that you would like to share?
Well,
Marry me.
I would say that I was fortunate to be able to command on 2 occasions at a unit level, a small unit level. And we had 40mm full track dusters, light tank chassis. Very dangerous to be around equipment like that. I've always been grateful that I never had a soldier seriously injured in the time that I was commanding them. But the most enjoyable time in the military was when I commanded the battalion.
Okay.
I had nearly 800 men and a few women. And it was just a great organization of good, efficient people. And I would say that was the highlight of my 28 years in the military, getting the opportunity to command and lead. And there's no substitute for it.
I can imagine. Do you remember any particular soldier that stood out or that you may still keep in contact with today just to see their progress? Since you're
There were a lot of good soldiers. I wouldn't select any particular one. One was just recently died, H.O. Boterford, who started out here at Clemson. He was sergeant major. He was in, I think, the third wave of the Marines when they invaded, I don't remember whether it was, I can't remember the island now, but anyhow, he was in the Guard with me and was there for many, many years. And then there were a lot of others. I was surprised after we left Vietnam that we were able to recruit a lot of soldiers who served in Vietnam.
Wow.
And we had good people, and that having good people makes it fun. It makes it enjoyable.
Yes.
Feel like you're getting something done and accomplished. So, not having anybody hurt seriously or killed would to me would be the highlight of my 28 years.
Okay.
Because it's so easy for something like that to happen.
Yes.
Guns blow up, things like that. Automobile wreck.
Tell her the story about the camp.
Did what?
Tell her the story about the time you were at camp. When the shell went the wrong way and hit the.
That was kind of funny. That was Camp Blandon, Florida.
Okay.
And that was when I was battalion commander. Air defense artillery guns are usually for target practice. We line up on a flat surface, a berm, and you have maybe a dozen or 2 dozen tracks up there with their guns. They all have a firing fan. And in this particular instance, we were told to move our track vehicles and guns back into the wood line for camouflage purposes.
Okay.
But we were behind the firing line up to the berm, and there were outhouses spaced at strategic intervals up and down that firing line. And my old unit, Charlie Battery, was using equipment that was malfunctioning. It's supposed to fire electrically, you know. You had electric switches to initiate the firing. Well, you could also fire them manually by kicking them off with your foot. Well, the safety switches on the people tending the guns, you have a safety officer, he's holding this safety switch. He sees something unsafe, he presses that switch, gun won't fire.
Yeah.
However, if you put it on manual, you can pump them off with your foot. Well, they were pumping them off their foot because the electrical system wasn't working.
Oh.
And they just happened to shoot 2 right through the outhouse.
That's a good thing there wasn't anybody in there.
We jokingly were referred to as the only battalion in air defense history to have an outhouse kill.
And when he retired, somebody had built an outhouse, you know, and had a rotor on the top like a helicopter and had the tail coming out of it like the helicopter and gave it to him. That's what I was looking for. Where is that thing?
Well, it's in Charlie Batter's possession.
Oh, you gave it to them.
Old time.
Okay.
Yeah, I'd forgotten about that. That was funny.
Yeah, I thought
It could
that
have-
was funny.
It could have been disastrous.
Yes. Is it?
Not only that, the 2 rounds that went through the outhouse would have gone off the post. They were heading that way because these guys are just kind of not being under control of the electrical system. They could have moved them any way they wanted. You couldn't stop it.
Exactly.
And so much noise you couldn't get anybody's attention. That was funny. Could have been not funny.
Yeah, exactly. But it's good as a good memory at the end of the
We
day.
did have one more incident, wasn't in my unit though, of a fuel truck rolling over and catching fire on the interstate when we were going to Camp Blandon. It happened to the unit in Easley. We had some soldiers injured there. Well, they all survived. That was a close call. There were others too, I just can't remember them all. They always have something like that going on.